Good morning, everyone. Good morning. That was pretty good, but let's try one more time. It's a beautiful day. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. That's awesome. So, welcome to our annual celebration of Black History Month at Forsyth Tech, and specifically to our Maisie S. Woodruff Aviation Center at Forsyth Tech. I'm Janet Spriggs, the president here at your community college, and it is a privilege to welcome you all here today for this inspiring annual celebration as we kick off the month of February, which is Black History Month. Today, we are privileged to have Miss Anita Justice with us, whose insights and experiences, I promise you, will inspire and enlighten. We gather in a venue that bears the name of a remarkable trailblazer, Ms. Maisie S. Woodruff. As the first African American elected to the Winston-Salem City Council, Miss Maisie was not just a political pioneer. She was also a commissioner at Forsyth County, and the first African American to be elected to that. She was a relentless advocate for education and social justice, and her legacy truly transcends time and continues to inspire us. Her dedication to creating equitable education opportunities and her undying commitment to social justice have paved the way for countless individuals to pursue their dreams without barriers. I never had the privilege of knowing Miss Maisie, and I've only been a part of this community for 6 years, but in that time, I personally have come to understand the true legacy that is Miss Maisie's. And I am so excited every year for the opportunity for us to celebrate not only Miss Maisie, but to celebrate all of our friends, neighbors, and family members who have contributed so much to the rich history of our Black and African American neighbors, friends, and family. Miss Maisie's spirit is particularly resident during our Black History Month, a time when we reflect upon and celebrate the countless contributions of African Americans to our nation's history and to our collective cultures. Her life's work reminds us of the power of education as a tool for not only social change, but also as the reminding us of the importance of steadfast advocacy in the face of adversity. As we listen to Miss Justice today, let us honor the memory of Miss Maisie Woodruff and her legacy by reaffirming our commitment to equity, to justice, and to education. May her enduring influence remind us of our responsibility to continue building an inclusive and just society where everyone can thrive and contribute. Thank you for joining us for this celebration and reflection. We look forward to both an enriching and thought-provoking dialogue, as well as some good time to be together, to celebrate, to remember, to reflect, and to continue to honor the profound impact of Black and African American leaders, visionaries, and trailblazers in shaping our world. It is my great pleasure to invite Dr. Tion Vinson up to lead us in song as she performs Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Good morning. I'll be singing a personal rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing. No changing of the lyrics, just the arrangement. And I hope you all enjoy. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings with the harmony march on until victory is won. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in thy path, we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee, shadow beneath thy hand. May we forever stand true to our God and true to our native land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vinson. That was truly amazing and heartwarming. Thank you. And now it is my great pleasure. Sorry, I did not do that, I don't think. Maybe that's my energy today. I don't know. It is my great pleasure to welcome Cheryl Harry, founder of the Triad Cultural Arts, up to introduce our keynote speaker.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I'm Cheryl Harry, and founder of Triad Cultural Arts, and that is the organization that brings you the Juneteenth Festival every year, just to put it into a little perspective for you. But it is my dear pleasure to introduce Anita Justice. She is an education consultant, researcher, podcaster, entrepreneur, and founder of Dignity Justified, and that's a traveling museum dedicated to preserving and showcasing African American history through art, artifacts, and literature. As the resident historian at Triad Cultural Arts, Anita has played a pivotal role in curating and leading educational exhibits. Her work highlights the intersections of education, history, and community engagement while illuminating untold narratives, reviving interest in neglected stories, and fostering a deeper awareness of Black history and culture. With over 3 decades of experience as an educator, Anita has taught language arts and social studies, mentoring students while also serving as a team leader, professional learning facilitator, and curriculum innovator. Her dedication to education has earned her multiple awards, including the Terry Sanford Award for Creativity and Innovation in Teaching. Anita's work serves as an inspiration for integrating diverse stories into curricula, fostering critical thinking, and creating a more inclusive educational experience. Through her research, museum work, and educational outreach, she provides valuable insights into how historical preservation and storytelling can be powerful tools for learning, engagement, and transformation. Today, I am pleased to welcome Anita as she shares her knowledge and passion with us. Thank you.
Oh, I am so happy to be here on this land, in this space, at this time with you all. Thank you so much, Cheryl Harry, for that wonderful introduction. That sounds so good. I thank you. So I'm going to ask you to accept that I want to offer the notion that when we think about the legacy of Maisie Woodruff, when we think about our leaders in our community, we want to always celebrate local history. Many times we put our heroes and sheroes on a bookshelf, and we have to remind the little happy faces traipsing about that they too can aspire higher and they too can be the future leaders. So we're going to delve into a little local history if that's okay with you all. All right, thank you. So I'm starting off just to celebrate Triad Cultural Arts and to remind us all that it provides opportunities to learn, to engage, and to make sure that we know what's in our neighborhood and what's in our community. Triad Cultural Arts understands that we like jubilation, we like things that are melodious, we love the festivities, but it's also based on research, understanding primary source documents, and bringing history, truthful history, to the celebrations and to the acknowledgement. That's generally what we were taught traditionally as young people growing up. We loved our country, we thought about patriotism, and we even have our favorite version of songs that evoke notions of being patriotic and loving the USA and America. For me, growing up, it was "This land is your land" because it was so picturesque. We learned about the Redwood Forest, the Gulf Stream Meadows. Some of you may have a favorite version of songs by, for example, Lee Greenwood, "God Bless America." Anybody a fan of Ray Charles, "America the Beautiful"? Whitney Houston's version. I know that one person with me is a Parliament Funkadelic, so he always loved "One Nation Under a Groove." So when we have songs and poetry, we are trying to say that we love our space in this world. We want to honor it, we want to celebrate it, and we always want to be included in the history of the story of our country. We ask ourselves, who's singing along, who's listening, who's learning, who's envisioning, who's experiencing, who's creating, who's celebrating, and who's not? At Meadowlark, this young man, Jason Reynolds, this is the cover of one of his books, he came into the school and said, "You know, young people, at 17, I hadn't even read a novel." It wasn't until he was 9 years old when he thought back on his 9-year-old experience with his grandmother, and he wanted to write about his grandmother. And so he said to young people, find your voice. Find your voice and tell your story, because if you understand yourself, you'll learn to meet and greet others. And so at Triad Cultural Arts, we have a great belief that once you know the self and you know the family, you'll begin to know the community, you'll begin to appreciate your family, your life, and your country. Jason went on to become the Library of Congress National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. And so we celebrate bringing young people to the fold with the productions, with the programming, to the extent that Cheryl makes sure that there's data to say this population is attending. There were more 17-year-olds this year than last year, or we have to pull in the people who are 8 years old, make sure that we have drummers for them, we have people who read to them, and understand that everybody should be a part of that community celebration. This is a heads up for me. I love the notion. This is former Governor Cooper's administration, 1 million projects funding to make sure that young people get out of the classroom and experience the community. So we hope that they'll visit the Aviation Center. We'll hope that they come to the Shotgun House Project. We hope that they'll visit more of their community resources. We love the nation. We love our state. But for Triad Cultural Arts, we always want to say this is where we are in this space and this time, and we want to always illuminate and celebrate what's amongst us. Let's talk about Piedmont Airlines for a second. Many people don't know that Dr. King was vilified. There were times where people didn't even want to be pictured with him. He couldn't fly, he couldn't travel everywhere comfortably. Triad Cultural Arts has presented the Green Book, and most of you know that story. Well, Here we have a picture of him at the Winston-Salem-based Piedmont Airlines. He's deplaning in Danville, Virginia. He's going to speak to protesters who had been assaulted. That day was called Bloody Monday, not to be confused with Bloody Sunday, which was Selma, Alabama. So that's a good notion of Piedmont Airlines being on the right side of history. I love that picture. And that's a part of what we do. When we land in a space, we look for those documents, we look for those primary source materials, so we can say, yep, it happened. They didn't just tell me, I can show you. What else can we show you? In 1886, there was a Foy family. They were builders and carpenters. They built so much that there was a section of Winston-Salem known as Foy Town. And a part of their land became the Foy Graveyard or Cemetery, and eventually, to support World War II, the area needed more runway space, and so they actually purchased land from this family. So part of the Foy family land became Smith Reynolds Airport. That's some good local history, isn't it? And what else did I do? I was like, okay, if that happened, I want to see what that looked like on paper. So here's a deed that shows it's the Foy family, how much they paid, and this is the Forsyth County Airport Extension for the Foy estate. So Triad Cultural Arts specializes in providing culturally immersive experiences. Cheryl mentioned the Juneteenth Festival. You can get on the bus with Gus. You can travel all over the city and learn about the history. You can attend the exhibits, and you can work toward understanding more about the Preservation House and the preservation projects. It's not like barn raising where you come with a hammer and a nail, but you can surely come and donate your time and funds to help with that cause. So my task today is pretty much to tell you about one of the projects, two of the projects, starting with the desegregation of schools for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and also to tell the story of Happy Hill, a neglected community that needs to be uplifted because we believe that we should preserve history, we should document history, and we should do our part to make sure that people are aware of the history in our midst. Sorry. The issue of desegregation is so important. You know, by the time you see a picture on a stamp, you know that it's history for us. So there was a desegregation stamp in 1999 to celebrate the century of desegregation. Everybody remembers in 1954, there was a landmark Supreme Court decision that said separate schools are not equal. This was an important project because we find that some of these themes are still recurring. Some of the same issues with equity in education, some of the same issues pertaining to the condition of schools, where some schools find themselves in the midst of moles and other schools seem to be castles in the sky. And we wanted to know what was the state response as well as the local response. And the state pretty much said, we know that in Winston-Salem you have some lawsuits. We know that across the country there's a move for diversity. And the state said, we don't want to do that, but eventually North Carolina did move forward, and we wanted to show you a picture of the first person to integrate Reynolds. This is Gwendolyn Bailey, 1957. Because of segregation, she couldn't take anyone to the prom. She couldn't take anyone to the picnic, but she landed on national news because Time and Life magazine came to Winston-Salem to tell her story. She's pictured with an advocate, Velma Hopkins. What did it look like for elementary school children? Here's Kenneth, his sister Rosalind. Norma Corley is in the middle. She's still very active today. So this is living history, people who are still in our midst, who can tell stories about desegregation. So Triad Cultural Arts, in addition to finding documents and primary source materials, we go to you and say, hey, do you have something to say? Do you have a story that you want to share with us? Please come and tell us your story. Cheryl also really trusts her when we have events. Norma is sitting at the desk and she is retrieving the tickets, she's selling the baskets, she's counting the money, she is on top of it. Surprisingly for me, when we spoke to her, she said prior to this exhibit, she had never even seen this picture. And that's the importance of being able to knock on doors and say, please share what you know. She was surprised to see the picture and she said to me, I really don't remember much about it. I do remember that I had to be perfect. And that's a heavy burden as a child, to go throughout life thinking that you're representing an entire group of people, an entire race of people, and it's your job as a little girl to be perfect. So the exhibit was initially an online exhibit. It became a on-site exhibit is still online at the historic Union Station. Union Station is across from Winston-Salem State University on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. It is a wonderful facility. It was great to have the exhibit there because it was an example of a segregated facility. Not segregated in terms of go around back, down the street, and across the bushes to get your ticket, but different in terms of one area had marble, other areas maybe terracotta flooring, but it was an excellent experience. What was North Carolina's response? North Carolina said, what we'll do, rather than have diverse populations, we will amend the state constitution because we don't believe that there should be diversity. They also said, you know, by the way, we don't even agree with the Supreme Court decision, so we're not even going to support it. Again, these are recurring issues, so even today, one of the landmark issues for North Carolina is the Leandro case. So these are kids in rural North Carolina, families in rural North Carolina. They're paying higher taxes, yet many times they couldn't even get a school bus on the roads when it was muddy. So our research found that stories are still continuing and people are still fighting to make sure that everyone gets an equal education. We also found that there were disparities in terms of funding throughout the state and throughout the country. Students of color received $23 billion less in funding than white school districts. And we also found out that there were differences in how people execute disciplinary policies and procedures. The beauty of what Cheryl does is that she knows everybody. And so when people come, they say, I showed up because Cheryl told me to come. And they just participate, and it's just a wonderful experience. So she pulled these legacy voices. It's so surprising to me that the people who felt that they weren't treated fairly, they have given their lives in community service, civic service, to make sure that life is better for others. And so she pulled the voices and they told their story. They told about living in an area and had never traveled beyond their little neck of the woods, and all of a sudden they had to go to another region and traipse about with new people. They told about those experiences. The exhibit also allowed community voices to come in and talk about the work that they're doing today, the work that they're doing in schools. And then young people came and told about the diverse friends that they have, about the organizations and programming in their schools. So it was just a fantastic exhibit. Last year, the North Carolina Commerce Secretary spoke and she said, North Carolina has been named America's top state for business for 2 consecutive years. And then she said, but when we looked at education funding, we've had an F for several years. Progress has been made, but again, my point is, they're recurring issues, and when we talk about what we're doing for Triad Cultural Arts, we remember that it has to be education-based. We have to bring people in the celebration, but we want them to learn some history, and we want them to be proud of their state and their ability to contribute. Winston-Salem Foundation, in their blog, made a comment, and I'll just read a few sentences to you. It said that data shows us that a child's educational experience can vary greatly depending on what neighborhood they live in, the color of their skin, or their socioeconomic status. Again, from decades, from the 20s to the 30s to the 40s, the same issues. We look at how it is that we're being a part of that change. That's a part of being an arts program, being able to look back. Triad Cultural Arts uses a Sankofa bird, a mythological bird that looks back. It says it's no crime to look back. And so what we do when we present history, when we present festivals and celebrations, we know where we are in space, but we look back and we reflect and we ask, what can we do to make things better? So one of the things that Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools has done is to be a part of Bridges Collaborative. And so the young man holding the adorable little girl is Dr. Stefan. Dr. Stefan was recently recognized with the Presidential Award, his family posthumously for his grandfather. His grandfather laid the framework for the Brown versus Board of Education. So it was just wonderful to present a Triad Cultural Arts exhibit rooted in race to that organization. Okay, on to Happy Hill. So this is a bird's eye view. Remember, we love documents and pictures. So this is this little community that's springing up at the Schumann Plantation. So these free people and formerly enslaved people, they eventually have lots of land lots, L-O-T-S, the little, I'm not saying a lot, sorry. So this is Happy Hill, and this is Liberty, and this community is springing up, and I wanted to see what that looked like in terms of print. So, I'm sorry, let me just go over this. It has a Moravian origin, so the Moravian church, they were not abolitionists. They were people who enslaved populations, and so I pulled a quote from Old Salem, and it says, Old Salem has noted that people of African descent are among the founders and builders of Salem, and thus the city of Winston-Salem. I think that's phenomenal. And I wanted to see what that looked like. So I found an article from 1874, and it says they're building lots, and these lots are being taken by colored persons. They've named the area New Liberia and Happy Hill, and so several houses are being constructed. Also, I found an 1886 article that says between Reynolds Factory and Happy Hill, they're building tenements. So they're welcoming people. People are coming in, and we know they're coming in to work in what? Tobacco, yes. So, honoring the legacy of Happy Hill, these free and enslaved people decided just after emancipation, the first thing they were going to do was to build a school for their children. Education was fundamental to them. So when they built the community, they thought about the church, they thought about the school, and they purchased their lots for $10, and the community grew from 1880 to about 1920. Mel White, a historian who also worked at the Chronicle, went around and said, can you give me some pictures? Can you share your family's story? And it's always good to make sure that we're knocking on the doors and checking with the family. And that's why it's just so beautiful when you see the Woodruff family coming in and knowing that they're included. And so he asked, can you tell us what you know about the community? After the exhibit about that hidden town about Happy Hill, Cheryl Harry and Martha Hartley of the Moravian Research Center said, people are still interested in this area. What else can we do? And they continued that exhibit. So you saw the older picture. Here's one from 1927. So they're bungalows and they're cottages, and people are building their area. There's a place to dance eventually. There are all kinds of meeting areas. They have reading clubs, debate clubs, and the community has found their way to understand freedom, to understand life, and to plan their community for generations to come. Eventually, they're working so hard and saving so much, they're striving to put their children to school. Wages are low, very low, but it was surely better than sharecropping. By the time we get to the 60s, there are black businesses all throughout areas that would now be aviation. I'm sorry, I'm at the Aviation Center, which would now be Innovation Quarter. So Church Street, 3rd Street, 4th Street, doctors, dentists, businesses galore. I also found using Sanborn maps, my favorite thing to do, carry those big maps and just look at where the houses were, and it shows that next to all of these tobacco factories, Negro tenements, shanties that they're building because people are coming by rail to work in Winston-Salem, all over the city, downtown area. So the name of the exhibit, Across the Creek from Salem, 1816 to 1952, and this is the school. School children, founders, and what are they doing? They're contributing. They think about their country. They're signing up. They're joining. They're in the Air Force, the Army. They have horses, gardens. They built a community. I love this picture, not just because of the little boys, but because we see the kinds of homes. We have cottages, dwellings, and everybody in the neighborhood understands that it's their responsibility to work and to do so that they make the city better. They said they were never embarrassed by jobs that were menial. They had to accept those. They thought that every job was worthy. Every job was worthy to be done well, and every job meant that they were saving and providing a better life for their children. Here's a man swinging his golf club on his land. He's a business owner. Children at a dance. And you know somebody was swinging and doing some jazz. And what do? Get dressed up and ride around in the neighborhood. So we wanted to also introduce you to the notion of shotgun. Has anybody ever lived in a shotgun house? Anybody ever visited a shotgun house? Oh, yay, yay, yay. So most of the time when we think about these houses, we think about Louisiana because they are just prissy and colorful. But the houses have a West African origin, specifically from the area that's now Benin. And so what we believe at Triad Cultural Arts is that those people who saw those houses in their motherland, when they were transported across that tragic transcontinental slave journey, they held within them the notions of what home looked like, just as they held notions of what cuisine was like, just like notions of music and the drumming. And so after the Haitian Revolution, thousands of people moved to Louisiana, and they took from Haiti the idea of what these homes look like. So they have a West African, then a Haitian, and then a Southern flair. They were so popular at one time that Sears even had shotgun houses that they boxed up and sent by rail. But this is what they would have looked like in the regions other than New Orleans. They're narrow, generally do not have an interior hallway, but black, white, poor, and middle-class people lived in the houses. And starting around the 1930s, the communities became stigmatized. There was a lack of funding mostly for these communities. And they're rare. It's so important that we understand this history because in North Carolina, there are only few. Many of you may remember the area of Princeville. I know that you remember because he remembers Williamston. He knew where Williamston was. That's my hometown. So these areas became stigmatized, and by the time we get to the 1950s, thousands, tens of thousands of them were destroyed. Princeville was also a neglected area, but Princeville had a double whammy tragedy. They had Hurricane Floyd and then Hurricane Matthew. So for many of these areas, their structures and things that are their foundation that show we were here and this is what we did and this is how we built community. Most of those things are gone. Elvis lived in a shotgun house. Any Presley fans out there? And the artist John Biggers celebrates the communities in shotgun houses. So many of his paintings have people standing out watching their children. Just wanted to show you a few. Here's one in Charlotte. This is the backyard, so just the front where people gathered on porches, but it's a backyard because you have your gardens, and you know somebody had some collard greens. Y'all know they did. Here's another. Here's one in Texas. This is Pitts, Happy Hill, Winston again. So what happened to these beautiful neighborhoods? What happened to the dreams that these families had? A local person, historian, Mr. Bradshaw, said that urban renewal came through and pretty much just wiped them, razed them off the face of the earth. And many people have the notion that everything was just dilapidated and every area was poverty-stricken. So I've included one picture to indicate that that is not the truth. This is the former house of Dr. Malloy. He and his father, both doctors, had fine houses. There were fine houses all over the city, but the areas were deemed unnecessary and the areas were deemed as needed for growth for the city, particularly the downtown area. What happened to Happy Hill? Story after story. 1910, the railroad comes through. 1930, Duke Power and Towers. 1950, 14 city blocks are raised. 60s and 70s, 52 Corridor. The Hope Project in 04, and 2014 Research Parkway. So home doesn't look like home for many of these people. And so the legacy is, I just want to read one bit to you. Later generations and their advocates become responsible for rediscovering pathways to God remembrances and to assist in preserving the remaining fragments of a visionary development that must not be discarded. So people built these communities coming out of emancipation because they wanted to have legacy homes. Cheryl has also presented to Salem Academy because those students wanted to know who was working as a laundry person or as a janitor. And they also found out that there were people, even after emancipation, who were still working for nothing. We tell the story of a community founder, Wade Bidding. I walked across from the shotgun house because in looking at that picture, I see that there's a railroad track. And sure enough, you walk out and you can see the parkway and there's a railroad track. You can go to the garden. The neighborhood is chopped off. Go to the graveyard. The areas are chopped off. And so this is the initial phase of the shotgun house. And so you can join Triad Cultural Arts to learn a little bit more about local history. You can come in and serve as an ambassador, volunteer to help with the fundraising, or just come in and tell your story as a part of the history. We're honored to be here with Triad Aviation Academy. We're thankful for the opportunity to learn about the facility. We look forward to connecting with you soon. Abrea Armstrong is the executive director, and Cheryl Harry, my hero, is the founder. We thank you for spreading the word about the celebrations, the festivities, and the importance of honoring local history. We believe that if you understand the self, and if you understand your community, you'll be a better person, and you want to be a part of all the great things that are going on so that you can tell people about your role in making Winston-Salem a great city. Thank you so much, Dean Tony, for the opportunity to be here, and thank you all.
What an awesome presentation. Please, let's give Ms. Justice another hand. I'm going to be brief because I know there's an awesome meal that's been prepared for us, but I would be remiss if I wouldn't let the audience know that, first of all, we have some gifts for some lucky members that are participating, that are here today. We have a book that was authored by Cheryl Harry. It's called Winston-Salem's African American Legacy. And if you look on page 83 of this book, you will find the phenomenal Miss Maisie Woodruff out doing her work. I'd like to first gift our president, Dr. Spriggs, with one. Secondly, and I'll make this right, if you would take a moment, maybe a little uncomfortable, look at the front of your chair. There's every table, there is a sticker on particular chairs. The front side. And would you raise your hand when you see a sticker? All right. As a matter of fact, let's see, could I get some help over here? All right. There we go. If you would raise your hand. Keep looking. So the cool thing about that is Cheryl Harry wanted to gift you all with an opportunity to look at our local history. For the Maisie Woodruff family, if you all would just get a number of how many you would like, and we'll take care of that, okay? So they'll get it if you're standing up. We thought that this would be an opportunity or an interesting way to address Black History Month by talking about what else? Our community. Since we're here at Forsyth Technical Community College, and we know that if we are invested in our community and we are invested in the history, it brings us closer, it builds our network stronger, and you learn more about what our environment's about. So I'm excited about that, and again, just a wonderful, wonderful job. Now, we do have a meal prepared, and in the spirit of inclusiveness and independence, we'd like to just take 30 seconds for you to just acknowledge whatever your deity would be to bless your food in your own way. Just a moment of silence for 30 seconds. Can we do that? And once that's done, and we'll start, we're going to ask that Dr. Spriggs, the speaker, and the Maisie Woodruff family start with the serving line. And then after that, we could just follow in accordingly. Okay? Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. Everyone, let's enjoy each other, get to know each other, build a stronger network, and thank you for joining us today. I really wanted to get to the food, but I did want to acknowledge the fact that we are donating at least 5 books to our learning centers so the students will have access to this information. Thank you, Shore Harry.